In Manchester, there was a big game yesterday. And the Scousers came in. There's a few that were humble, but Jamie Carragher himself admitted most of his Liverpool friends, family, colleagues that were in his WhatsApp groups, all of them predicting 3-1s and 4-1s, all over social media, predictions of, how many are we going to score? I can't wait for this game. And Liverpool dominated Man United. There is no if, buts, and maybes. That first half was an abomination to the history of my football club. I was embarrassed and I was fuming. But the bottle job, the lack of clinical edge from this Liverpool team to not only failed to kill us off, but then the goals we scored were very good goals from us, from the opportunities that were presented. But Liverpool lost their way. They relied on a very dodgy penalty to get back into the game. And in a league title campaign that may go down to the odd point or goal difference, Paddy, it was a disastrous day for Liverpool yesterday, especially losing to a Man United team in the situation and form that we're in, considering you dominated so much.
Yeah, listen, I think given our performances at Old Trafford in previous years under Klopp, I think that in itself is a bad result. But especially given the context of the game and how it played out, we really let that one slip yesterday. And it's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating. I actually predicted 2-2 though. If anyone's seen my match preview, I wasn't confident purely because we failed to beat United twice before yesterday, and now obviously 3 times. But yeah, it's definitely 2 points that we've squandered, and it could come back to haunt us, because if you look at Arsenal and you look at Man City, they both look distinctly better than us, which is mad to say because we're, we have the same points as Arsenal. But like, if you look at Arsenal in a dead rubber game or a tough game against Sheffield, I don't even know what score was it, 6-7, and then Liverpool made it a tough job. Yeah, I just can't help but feel like yesterday was a tough one. But the way the game played out, and to be only going in 1-0 at half-time was inexcusable. We missed so many opportunities. United didn't even have a shot in the first half. That game should have been put to bed. And if it was 2-3 at half-time, it would have been over. And then, of course, we gift them the first goal. Don't get me wrong, an outrageously good finish from Bruno. But then that gives Man United the impetus in the game. It gets the fans up. And I have to say, as much as people like to clown about Liverpool's atmosphere, I'll give credit where it's due. Old Trafford is unbelievable when the fans are on it. It's a raucous atmosphere, and I think that spurred United on. And yeah, I'm very disappointed. And I just don't know. The manner in which we bottled it, I just feel will seep into the title race, and I ultimately feel we'll just finish short.
Listen, I get where you're coming from, and Liverpool City are the team I don't want to win the league the most, because this 4p, then they'll be on for a 5p. And I only really feel like Man United fans and Liverpool fans understand this. And I think it's because United and Liverpool and the records that we have are superior to everybody else's. But a team doing a 4p is ridiculous. I obviously don't want Liverpool winning it because they're my biggest rivals and they would match us on league titles. So there is, in the backdrop of a disgustingly bad season for my club, and that, whether you think it's the manager's fault, whether you think it's injuries, put that argument aside, it's been a bad campaign for us. Knocking Liverpool out of the FA Cup, taking points off them home and away when we had no right to, based on how we're both performing, I feel like there's still a chance they win the league because they're still favourites in my opinion. But I do hope you're right and this game comes back to haunt you, because then as a United fan, I can look at it and say, at least we put a pin in the party of, the long farewell of Jurgen Klopp. He's not leaving with this lesser quad. He isn't leaving with another Premier League title. And that element, as a Man United fan, I was really proud of. Now, we might end up with Man City in the FA Cup final again, and we've got to try and stop them potentially doing another bloody treble if Arsenal don't win the league and if they do what they're doing in there. But I wouldn't say proud of the performance yesterday. The performance from Man United for large parts of the game embarrassed me. But on results, yeah, I was happy with a draw. I've very rarely been happy with a draw in my life against Liverpool, home or away. But I was yesterday. I was as proud as punch.
Listen, United obviously aren't having the best season. They might not end up in it themselves, but in a season like that, if you can stop your biggest rivals winning an FA Cup, and you've taken 4 points off us, and let it be known, whatever happens, Liverpool won't be more than 4 points away from either Arsenal or Man United. So if we don't win the league, Man United would have directly stopped us. And if you can have that in the history books, that's something you can take away. Because believe it or not, like don't get it twisted. If Liverpool were switched places with Man United right now, I'd be buzzing that we've stopped Man United. You know what I mean? But
100%. I mean, it was when I moved to Manchester. I knew a little bit about Man United, but when I moved to Manchester in the early 2000s, the internet existed, but there wasn't as much on there as there is now. And when I went up there and lived, every older head, when it comes to the club, would talk about stopping Liverpool's treble. We beat them in the FA Cup final. This was when Liverpool were the best team in the world. Yes, that was actually winning a trophy as opposed to beating them in the league game. But the pride still that they spoke about, this was a Man United team at this point that were treble winners, dominating the Premier League. And they were still so proud that they stopped Liverpool from achieving that history. So I think that's helped shape how I view football, that I can deal with the Egals of this world being shameless about Arsenal winning a trophy, because actually Liverpool having a treble, or Liverpool leaving, Klopp leaving and winning 3 or 4 trophies would hurt me so much more for what that does for my biggest rival's legacy than it does Arsenal fans having a laugh online. I could just mute them or not look at it. Like, it's really simple to not be triggered by that. So I think it was really important yesterday from a pride point of view. And I love what Mainu said after the game about, he scored a beautiful goal, and that was probably the best move of the game from Man United as well. But the overarching play was pretty good. The finish, it was actually Kiko Makeda-esque in the way he turned and shot. But I like that the mentality from him around, we didn't win, so we're not overly happy. And yeah, look, on as a one-off game, not looking at the season as a whole, proud as punch yesterday, personally.
No, you should be, and you should be proud of Kobe Mainu specifically. He is an absolute baller. Not only is he such a good midfielder, he controls that midfield, he defends, he tackles, but that goal he pulled out yesterday was superb. And yeah, he's a special player. He's definitely one that I'm jealous of you guys for having. But listen, you've played us 3 times this year, and we haven't beaten you once, and you've knocked us out of the FA Cup, and you've dented our title hopes. So yeah, it's credit to you. I gave you credit before the game. You could go now and lose to relegation fodder, but ultimately you've done one over on us, and I think that will actually matter for more in a season where you probably won't get top 4 anyway. So who cares if you drop points against a lesser side? You've done not the double, but we haven't beaten in 3 games.
Yeah. I agree, and I remember I was at the I remember a few of my friends were Liverpool fans as a kid, and we were both. They went to the FA Cup game at Old Trafford where we scored the 2 last-minute goals to knock you out of the FA Cup in '99. And we were talking at school, and I said, "What was it like? What was it?" Because I hadn't been to see Man United live at that point. I went later that season to watch them. I probably picked the best game ever as my first ever United game live away from home, watching Aston Villa at Villa Park. Sorry, for the Arsenal FA Cup replay. It was just with the Ryan Giggs goal. It was what a game. Lost my dad when Giggs scored because of the celebrations, and then started to shit myself. I was surrounded by all these northern men, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was genuinely panicking. But yeah, so it's one of these things where. But I remember my friend saying that all he was hearing from the Liverpool fans is, "We've really messed up here. They might go on and win this treble, and we've allowed that to happen." And that stuck with me from 1999 right through till now. And a lot of United fans are fuming at us last year because we didn't stop City from winning the treble by beating them in that FA Cup final. And I think those things really matter. I'm sure if this was Arsenal versus Spurs, well, we know this has happened before because Chelsea fans had an awful season the year they stopped any chance of Spurs winning the Premier League. That game's famous. Was it Bridgegate or whatever it was called? Like that game,
Battle of the Bridge.
Right. That game is famous in Premier League folklore because of the rivalry between the 2 clubs. So yeah, absolutely proud as punch. And what you said about Mainu, David, you've done a lot of shows with me when we spoke about young players, and there are some young players that come through where you go, yeah, he could be a squad player for us, maybe. But I always say the thing about there are certain youngsters too many youngsters get raved about. And at Man United, we had Angel Gomez. People were raving about Chong like he was going to legitimately be Messi. And I'd watch them all and go, yeah, they're all right, but I'm not blown away. Mainu, just watching him 2 or 3 minutes, you're just like, yeah, there's a player in there. And I didn't think he had his best game for us yesterday, but that's in such a dysfunctional team. I'm so desperate to watch him play in a side that's structured, where he has a set position, where he's got quality around him, because he's got everything. In my personal opinion, he can control games, tackle, pass, create. He's got an eye for a goal, because he scored 3 goals now. 2 of them have been absolute worldies, and I think there's much more to come from this young man.
No, I think he is very good. I think he just, again, Man United and player development in the past couple of years haven't really gone together. And I think you just have to be prepared for, because he will, again, he's young. He's going to have his down moments where he might make a mistake, or he might have a string of games where it's not all quite working for him. And I just think the fans have to be prepared to go through those moments. As long as you do that, he'll be absolutely fine. He looks the player. And this is coming from somebody who hates young players. He does look like
but you don't hate you don't hate young players. I think what it is with you, and tell me if I'm right, you hate the fact that everybody, like most of the time, people go far too over the top for every young player that comes through.
Oh,
so you might have 5 academy players all the same age, and people talk like they're all going to be world class, and it's like, when does that happen?
You can't have that. Like, if you have 8 great youngsters in a team, they're just not going to work. It's not going to work, because they can't all progress with each other. It doesn't work like that. You need like someone who's above them, or like a couple players around them, just to be like, oh yeah, because they'll do these little things, these little nuances that separate the good players from the great players. Where when you're looking at it from someone who doesn't play football at that level, you won't notice. But like a high level player will go, like, the fact he's received the ball at this position, so he can give it off in that direction. That's something that's so minuscule we won't see, but higher players will. And I do think he definitely has that star quality about him. But your club just needs to sort themselves out. Otherwise, he's never going to be in a situation where he can show it, and it actually means
we've had a few in the last 8-9 years, whether we've purchased. And by the way, Rico Lewis is also a very excellent young player as well. There's no doubt, Rahman, he is. I think Mainoo's getting a lot more attention, though, because he's a bright spark in what is otherwise been a really poor season. If we were the best team in the world and he was coming through, there'd be hype, but I think there'd be less, because there'd be so many other things to talk about positively about Man United. But yeah, Rico Lewis is an excellent player. But I think we've had a lot of young players that have come through, whether people think they're as good, talented as Mainoo. When you think, Garnacho's come through, you've had Rashford come through, and a few others as well that are no longer at the club. You bought Martial young. I'm so desperate for the structure of our club to get fixed, though, because I worry about Mainoo in 2 to 3 years' time, if he's coached to play in this system, because this system is going to destroy him in the end. Because yesterday, all I saw was a defensive line sitting back deep, and everyone, including a holding midfield player, pressing forward, leaving this big hole. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I heard the commentators go in really for the first time this season. I'm thinking, we've all been screaming about this for 4 or 5 months, and I'm glad now the media is talking about it. There's been not leaked, but it was out there. When he was the Ajax manager, I mean, they do wicked shows in the Netherlands where they get like the manager on like a match of the day, and they all roast him. They were all talking about I'd love him to imagine they did that on match of the day. They sit a manager in the room and actually rip into him. But even then, Ten Hag he admitted, yeah, you can't do this. You shouldn't leave yourself exposed. It's something we've got to work on. But he hasn't improved on that element of his game as a manager. And to add insult to injury, we just don't pass as well as the Ajax team either. So it's not even as aesthetically pleasing with the same flaws. So that needs to be fixed, plus a lot of other things behind the scenes. But overall, look, I'm glad we put a dent, because it hasn't ended Liverpool's title hopes. They're second, and it's just goal difference. And there's a lot of hard games for Arsenal, a lot of hard games for City to come. Before we move on.